Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Welcome home. Welcome back to USA Global TV and Radio, where we provide world-class education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and I am so excited to be here with you for the third episode of this amazing show, The Resume Whisperer with Josef Stetter. This program is drawing in people from all over the world who are curious about seeking employment. There's a lot more to it than what one might think. And we have our expert here. He is not only the resume whisperer, but he's the corporate culturalist. He's had a number of jobs, a number of careers, and he's helped tens of thousands of people find gainful employment. Let's welcome him to the program. He's joining us from Canada. Josef, welcome.
Hello. Thank you for being back. Much easier to speak to somebody as opposed to carrying a conversation by myself, but it was a blast though.
I have to give you a lot of credit. I said to you afterwards, it is not easy to carry on a 40-minute show all by yourself, and you did an excellent job. So thank you
very much. Thank you.
So we're here for episode 3, and every show has been dynamite so far. We've gotten great feedback. You are a master when it comes to helping people find employment, and there's so much that goes behind the scenes. I think people feel like, at least going back decades, when we would handwrite a resume and maybe put some lipstick on it, spray some perfume, and then hope that somebody's going to actually open the thing and contact us. There's been a major evolution, and you've been involved for a long time helping people understand what's involved in putting yourself out there in the best light. What do you feel that people need to know?
Again, I think that because of the fact that we're in the digital age, you need to do more to bring back the old school values. So Napoleon Hill, in his brilliant book, Think and Grow Rich, shares a quick story about, an old lady that came to this big retailer. It was raining outside, and this kind of lowly clerk came up to her and was like, "Are you okay?" And she said, "It's raining outside. I'm just waiting for the rain to finish." And with that, just so that I could keep dry. And he went and grabbed a chair for her and brought it to her and said, if you're going to wait in the store, might as well be comfortable. She didn't ask for it. Now, a few months later, the old lady called and said that she wants to furnish her castle. And the only way she would give the store the sale is if that clerk got the sale. And the store was like, "But he's a clerk. He doesn't know sales. He doesn't know anything." She's like, "Well, he was nice to me. If you want this sale to, decorate my castle, I suggest that you let him." Now, she ended up being Andrew Carnegie's mother, right? That started or owned U.S. Steel. And so the sale was so big that this individual became a VP. And this is kind of the foundation of what I talk about. You need to stand out. You need to be different than everybody else. If everybody else is sending resumes online, go in person, have conversations, network, do those things that nobody else is doing. I have, 20 years of experience, and some of the stories just, you would think that this would be common sense, but we've come so far away from common sense these days. I had a friend of mine that graduated mechanical engineering, and the catch 22 was that to get an entry level job, he had to have 3 to 5 years of experience, which the way that he did his program, he didn't actually do an internship or option or co-op option for his degree. So after sending out hundreds of resumes and not getting anywhere, he printed about 25 resumes, picked a few companies that he's interested in, drove to the first one for 9 a.m. and said, I want to speak to the director. Receptionist looked at him and said, do you have an appointment? He said, no. She looked at him and said, the director is busy all day. He said, okay, I'll wait. And he waited there till about 2:15 in the afternoon. At 2:15 in the afternoon, the director finally popped his head out and said, I understand you've been waiting for me all day. How can I help you? And my friend gave him his resume and said, listen, I've just graduated from mechanical engineering. This is some of the projects I've done. I know you're not hiring, but I wanted to introduce myself in person. The director was so impressed that he was willing to spend the entire day waiting for him that after a 5-minute conversation and give him a job offer, right? And most people go, I've sent out hundreds of resumes. And when I call them and say, have you called them? Have you checked in? Have you verified that they got your resume? I mentioned some of the techniques in the last episode. And most of them go, no, I never did. So I'm not really surprised that you're not getting responses because you get lost in the shuffle. So, it's so important to be unique, to be different, to be recognized, to be remembered, to do that little bit extra. A friend of mine who's also been a mentor wrote A Cup of Chicken Soup for the Soul, which was the small version that was pocket sized, that sold over 600,000 copies worldwide. And I remember he shared the story with me, and I thought, wow, this is the way I want to live my life. So he's originally from North Bay, which is about 8 hours north of Toronto, for those of you who understand a little bit of geography. And there was a security guard there that would show up to work every day early, would always be smiling, would always be full of energy. He would open the doors for customers. If stores had new merchandise that they were bringing in, he would help them carry the merchandise to the store. If he saw people that had a lot of shopping, he would help them carry their bags to their car. If he saw garbage on the floor, he would pick up the garbage, and always had this great mind. Now, the owner had an office on the 4th floor that kind of overlooked the entire mall. And they would see the security guard doing this every single day. And they called him into the office and said, why do you do this? And the security guard says, well, I'm going to be here for 8 hours a day. I might as well enjoy it. And I don't like seeing garbage around the floor or in my house. I like to keep my house clean. So I treat my work like my house. They were so impressed with his attitude that they offered to pay his entire education, including his MBA, so that he can come back and manage the entire mall. Right. And so when I talk to people, it's just like, yeah, but I'm waiting for them to call me. Yeah, but, everything's online now. Yeah, it is, but you're not being hired strictly from online. You need to have a conversation. And that's where I think there's such a massive gap with what's happening today with job seekers. And as we jokingly say, Dr. Jacalyn, that, in our generation, we did things a little bit more manually. We were a little bit more proactive. We need to bring that back. I think that's the gap.
Absolutely. I love the stories that you shared. Just so thought-provoking. And, something I wanted to share with you is I've always had some kind of side hustle most of my life because I get bored and I like to do something else. So I've punched the clock many times, even though I have my corporate career. And when I was doing makeovers for people, I worked for a clinique, and I would get the Windex out and I'd spray the counters, and I'm picking up the trash, and I'm walking around even to other departments and arranging things when there's nobody there. And somebody in my team said, what are you doing? There's nobody in the store. You can just sit back and, no, I'm part of a team. I'm part of something bigger. I want to lend a hand wherever I can. And I feel like if people had that mindset, instead of looking for their handout all the time, well, what am I going to get for it? Well, why should I do it? You just never know where it's going to lead.
Oh, 100%. And look, this also impacts with the mindset of asking for a promotion or a raise. If you come to your boss and say, "Hey, I'm really hardworking, I should get a raise," what have you done? Now, even though there might be proof that you've done great things, like, help your manager out. So I teach people, like, if you want to get a raise, like, create a 2 to 3 page document saying, here's the work that you've done and here's the impact it's made. Like, here's how much revenue it's generated for the company. Here's, how much market share. Here's how much awareness. Like, if you're in social media, let's say, and you are in charge of posting on social media, and the company had 1,000 followers when you started working and now has a year later 10, 15,000, it's a 15-time return on investment. It's 15-time engagement. So what is that worth to you in business? So when you're asking for that 5, 10, 20, $30,000 raise, if you come in and say, I think I deserve a raise, I worked hard here, okay, but you're probably going to get the typical 2%, maybe 3. But if you have proof and you have facts, you have numbers, you have data, it's hard for leadership to go, well, we don't know if you deserve this raise, because at the end of the day, the $5,000-$10,000 should not break their bank. If it does, you're working for the wrong company.
Joseph, great points there. I have a question for you because I feel this is really important. If we are looking for a promotion or we're looking to move within the organization, should we be looking at what everyone else is doing? Oh, he's doing that or she didn't do that, and running and reporting on this? Or should we be focused on the positives of what we're doing and how to express that?
I think there's a little bit of both. So there is the golden rule, sometimes known as the Fibonacci rule, otherwise known as the 80-20 rule. 80% of most of companies' productivity comes from 20% of the people, right? Similarly, 80% of people apply for 20% of the jobs, which are the ones posted on job boards, right? So if you're going to look at what others, look at the superstars from other departments. Look at what they're doing well that maybe you need to improve on or demonstrate to show that you can handle going to another department. But obviously, you also need to be confident that what you've done has made an impact and a contribution in the work environment, right? But this is where the concept of mentors come in. Mentors are there because they've done it before you. They've made big mistakes, and so they're there to minimize the mistakes you make, or to make your learning curve steeper so that you can actually accelerate that much faster, because you're going to avoid the trials and tribulations of trying to figure out everything on your own.
Excellent. Thank you. So, what are your thoughts, if we stay on this topic, about promoting from within versus bringing in new talent? So, let's say we have someone who is looking to become a vice president of sales, but they have no sales experience, similar to the example that you just gave. And there are people outside the organization that have extensive amount of sales experience. What is the best approach in terms of bringing the asset or keeping the loyalty with your current employee?
So again, if that's the desire, first of all, you can speak to the company about being certified or trained in sales courses. There's a ton of them that exist. That's the first part, to actually show that you're serious about it and that you're willing to learn before you even start the role. Second thing is, again, play to your strengths. So I just had a meeting with an individual that he is kind of the director of sales for North America, South America, kind of thing. But he is extremely analytical. Now, the company that he works for, they do a lot of government contracts, especially in IT development for countries around the world. And so he said to me, in part because he's so analytical, when he makes recommendations on what projects to take on, there's very little risk associated with it, because he's not coming from ego in terms of like, oh yeah, I'm a great salesperson, I know how to do sales. He's coming from the fact that I've researched this, I've done my homework, I've done my due diligence, and I know that this option has the least amount of risk. As someone who's worked in sales, I'm very much a big picture guy as opposed to the little details guy. Now, in his case, he's doing government contracts. The fact that he's so analytical is such a positive for him. If you're doing sales in typical, like, let's say, service sales, product sales, and so forth, the charisma, the energy, the knowing the nuances of, let's say, the pain and pleasure principles, and understanding how to use that or leverage that to get the sales are so important, right? But again, I think it's, first of all, understanding beyond, like, going from a direct, like a project manager to a director, let's say. The main difference between the two is that the project manager does the actual implementation and make sure that every department does what they need to do. The director starts looking at what strategies to use to get the project manager to do his job. And the VP is the visionary that comes up with the ideas that are necessary to move to the next stage. So if you are a director and you want to become a VP, can you show that you have a vision? Can you show your game plan? Can you show that if this was executed, this is the expected results? Can you show that you can create a standard from it? Right. So I think last show I mentioned, but I worked for a private college company that owned multiple colleges across Canada. My VP wrote a 650-page manual, and I was the director of admissions. And when he showed it to me, he asked me, what do I think about it? And I kind of looked at him and went, do you want the honest answer or do you want the politically correct answer? And forgive me for swearing right now. His expression was, I hate grin fuckers, which are, yes, this is great. I love this. This is great. So I said to him, look, if I'm being brutally honest, there's some brilliant things in your manual, but it's 650 pages. As a director, for me to train 650 pages is not, I'll never finish training them, right? It's too much. And some of the stuff that you have here was valid 10 years ago, before everybody checked information online, before, people could compare instantly through Google what our colleges offer to other, let's say, private colleges. So my friend and I, who are both directors, we kind of spent, we'll say, almost a week, and we put together an 80-page manual with diagrams, with explanations. These are the 4 ways that we can control sales. These are the leads that come directly from the company. These are the leads that we can use kind of locally in the community. These are the leads that are, individual. You can go to networking events and so forth and so forth. And he looked at it and went, oh, this is great. I love this. And he took our 80 pages, incorporated it to 650 pages, and gave us a 1,000-page manual. Because he was so like, this is mine. I need to show that I did this. I need to show that I'm the VP and I know what I'm talking about. And it ended up being more headache than it was worth, because it was too much. And even the sales rep were like, okay, I'm not doing this, and I'm not doing this. But they took some of the concepts, predominantly some of the shorter concepts that my friend and I came up with, to drastically improve the sales, where, let's say, my team was able to quintuple their sales. But to train a 1,000-page training manual is, when we can't really stop the business, was insane.
I'm smiling over here just thinking about 1,000 pages, and it reminds me when I was in corporate and we go out with those 75-page PowerPoints, 75 slides, and the people are falling asleep, they're nodding off. And I think that brings us to another concept that's important. I remember I was taught, actually by my father, to use big words and have sentences that were not, I don't want to say they were long, but then when I started in corporate for working somebody much younger, he said, keep it to a Twitter feed, shorten it up, shorter words, more direct. So if you're thinking about presenting yourself to someone, is less more, or is more less? What would you say in terms of the resume as well as the interview?
I think it's a combination of two things. I think first of all, it depends on the role. Like I'm just writing right now a resume for someone who's a PhD in microbiology and um, whatever microengineering. I forget, biological, whatever it is there, right? And there is so many technical terms associated with the work that I even said to him, like, yours is probably the hardest resume I've had to do in 20 years because most of the technical terms are not really quantifiable because the research is confidential. So you can't really give over details. You can give overview, like I was in charge of modifying fruits and vegetables to be able to grow them without soil, to be able to grow them in colder weather, to be able to grow and maintain the DNA structure of, let's say, a tomato or a cucumber and so forth. But I kind of said to him, like, I never write a 4-page resume unless you have 40 years of experience and it's a little bit more diverse. Like when I rewrote my father's resume, because he was a civil engineer and he built highways and he built hospitals and he built schools and he built residential, I could kind of separate, this is the residential, this is the industrial, this is the commercial, and this is the institutional work. So I squeezed his curriculum vitae back in the day to a 4-page resume kind of thing. But unless you've had that kind of long of a career, first thing is that when you put 40 years of experience, they age you. And so nowadays, unfortunately, there's a mindset of the more experienced are more expensive. So we don't want them. So you shouldn't put more than 20, 25 years of experience on your resume at any given time. Second thing that you need to understand is that if earlier in your career you worked retail and you're now trying to be VP of sales, nobody cares about your retail experience. Like, you've earned the right to say it's not part of it. It's like people that under their education go back to, I have resumes of people that have written like where they went to elementary school. I'm like, why? I don't care. Like, if you've got a college degree, I don't even care about your high school. So relatively speaking, there are some jobs where, again, you can create a highlight reel that intrigues people, right? So if I use my background in sales, right, I can say I was able to generate $860,000 in sales to a private college that before I came in did $530,000 in sales for the year. I did $860,000 in 1 month for them. So just saying that usually is a wow enough statement that people go, how did you do that? But I want them to ask me how, because if they're asking me how, I got an interview, for example. So I don't need to give every detail of how, understanding who my clients were to get the sale. So I think it really depends on, first of all, the kind of profession, the kind of work, and secondly, the level that you're applying for. Um, I sent an email to somebody on LinkedIn saying, "Hey, I help people with their resumes," and this gentleman happened to be a CFO. He's been a CFO for 20 years. When I looked at his LinkedIn profile, it said CFO, name of company, years worked. CFO, name of company, years worked. I'm like, okay, have you done any mergers and acquisition? He's like, nope. I'm like, have you done any complex financial modeling? Nope. Have you done any investment portfolios as a CFO? Nope. So you expect companies to hire you as a CFO because the word CFO is appearing on your LinkedIn profile for the past 20 years? If you haven't done the 3 things that I'm asking you, why would I, first of all, interview you for roles that need those 3 things? And B, like, I'm speaking to you because I sent you an email marketing to kind of say that I can help you. But I can assure you that if recruiters saw this, good recruiters will not touch your resume with a 10-foot pole or your LinkedIn profile with a 10-foot pole because there's no data. There's no information that tells me what is it that you actually do. I'm going to use construction, right? I had to recruit for estimators. Now, there's a big difference between estimators that know windows or estimators that do roofing or estimators that do general contracting. So unless I know the name of the company you're working for, and there's so many small ones, do you honestly think that I have time to figure out if the company you work for is general contracting or roofing or this? No. So you're shooting yourself in the foot for opportunities because recruiters like myself don't know what you do, and we don't have time to figure it out. I'm recruiting right now for a client for compliance and regulatory affairs in the banking system. Again, I went through 1,000 LinkedIn's. There was probably, I'd say, 600 LinkedIn's that just had job title, name of the bank that they work for, and years of work. And like compliance and regulatory affairs, and there's not a single detail as to what compliance, what regulatory affairs, what issues you've dealt with. Now, obviously, if you're well networked or you have a reputation in the industry, you probably don't need to find a job. Companies will come to you directly. But 1,000 people on LinkedIn, 700 of them had useless resumes. So it makes me wonder if they're trying to switch positions because the bank they're working for just got nailed with a $300 million compliance fine and another one kind of thing. Maybe they're unhappy. But just because you have a title that says VP doesn't mean that you're getting hired automatically.
Joseph, I love the fact that you brought up LinkedIn because I have something that I really want us to talk about as well. We have a number of people come to this platform for interviews and they send in a biography. And when we go and do our research on LinkedIn, the biography does not match the LinkedIn profile. And so what happens many times is that they don't want any acknowledgement of where they're working, where the paycheck's coming, because they're doing something on the side. And so my question for you is, it sounds like it's appropriate to have several different resumes depending on what we're targeting or what aspect or element of our background that we're focused on.
I think that is one of the biggest myths and misinformation that's been spewed for 35 years, that you should customize your resume for every job that you apply to. I think that is complete hogwash. I'm going to be politically correct. And the reason I say this is if you've been someone like me that switched careers a few times, then if I'm applying for, let's say, a sales job, I'm going to highlight the sales roles first. Right? If I'm applying for, let's say, an operations job, I'm going to highlight the operational jobs or work that I've done first. If I'm applying for, let's say, an HR role, I'm going to highlight the HR functions I've had. So it's the same resume. I'm just not putting it in chronological order. Now, if you've done a great job, highlighting the results that you've produced, the impact that you've made in terms of what you did, whether big or small, then you don't need to change. Because again, using the example I gave before between a director and a project manager, the difference between them is the words you use. Because for project management, you talk about scheduling and coordinating with other departments and meeting with them. As a director, you're talking about the strategy used to get things done. Same work, tentatively, right? Because the higher you go up the scale, the more you're using the same words. You're using words like scheduling, budgeting, forecasting, KPIs, reporting. So the moment you hit title of manager or even supervisor, everybody does reporting. The level of reporting, the extensiveness of reporting is what changes. Everybody does forecasting, everybody does budgeting. But to say, because what I'm noticing even on the job posting side is that you have companies that spend like a page and a half telling you why their company is great and why you really love to work there. But the job itself is extremely generic. You will do this. You will do some budgeting. You will do some forecasting. And I'm looking and going, okay, so unless you're a solopreneur, and even then, everybody does budgeting. can you give a more specific hint as to what it is that you need me to budget? Or what is it that you need me to do a report? So sometimes when I talk to people, again, I'm not dismissing anybody's genius. But when someone says, I've done reporting and my title is director, I go, great, you did a 2-page report. Whoop-de-doo. And they kind of get offended by it. And I go, okay, what kind of reports did you do? How extensive were they? How detailed were they? What kind of, information did you have to incorporate in this report? And when they start telling me, I go, why is this not on your LinkedIn profile? Why is this not on your resume? Because you assume that just because you have a title that I know what you do. I don't. Right. So the easiest way to explain to those, I think I mentioned in the last episode as well, those people that are lucky enough to be in a relationship, when you come home from work and you tell your partner what you're doing or what you're responsible for, I'm not talking about the days where you go, I did my job. I'm talking about the days where you're like, oh my God, you'll never guess what happened today. Like, we had this huge problem. And basically we had to stop everything and focus on how we're going to fix this problem. And I sat there for 3 hours. I was trying to look at everything. And then I came up with a solution that is genius. This solution is going to save the company hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we'll be able to automate. We'll be able to have less errors. That's what you need on your resume, not I know how to do reporting.
Excellent distinction. And thank you for busting that myth, because I was under the impression that was the case because of the fact that when people come here and they have one LinkedIn profile and then they have something else on their bio, and I was trying to figure out how can this go together. So
again, you got to remember that as guests for a show, they might not necessarily be practicing their genius as part of their job that pays their bills. So they might be doing the genius as a part-time, as a secondary, or as you kind of said, alluded to earlier, as a side hustle, right? Mm-hmm. But as a side hustle, they might be very good at what they're doing and can therefore leverage it, but it's not their profession, or it's not their, sorry. It's not necessarily what they get paid to do. I think the statistics say that close to 70% of people in North America never actually work in what they studied. Right. So just because you have a degree in economics, your career might have nothing to do with economics. Right. But you might still enjoy doing those economics calculations. And if you've done it in a side hustle where people have paid you to be a consultant, and that's what you want to speak on the show, more power to you. Right. So there's a level where you have to own your genius, and you have to own why your genius is. Just make sure, and this is something that frequently bothers me, is that I support everybody being an entrepreneur and being a coach or mentor and so forth. But you need to know what lane you're in, right? There is people coming out into the coaching world that are, I'm the coach for everything. And so I kind of look and go, if you weigh 300 pounds and you're going to be my personal trainer, my first question to you is, did you used to weigh 500-600 pounds? Because if you used to weigh 500-600 and you're now 300, you've gone through the difficulty of yo-yoing with your weight. You've done through the, emotional eating. And I respect that you've lost the 300 pounds. But if you weigh 300 pounds because you still enjoy your donuts or your pizza and you're big boned, but you work out, then no, right? I remember I met this younger lady that was early 20s, and she called herself a nutritionist and personal trainer. And I looked at her and go, okay, did you study kinesiology? She's like, no. I'm like, did you study any sports medicine or nutrition? She's like, no. I'm like, okay. Do you have any certifications in fitness, for example, TRX, kettlebells? No. Right? Okay. Have you competed in sports at a high level? No. Have you had any injuries that you had to train your body to heal and recover? She's like, no. So I looked at her and said, you're 22, I'm 46. I tore both shoulders twice in the same spot and I need surgery on both shoulders. And so because of that, I cannot really do bench pressing and a lot of other exercises. But you're going to be my personal trainer because you got your knowledge from where? She was like, YouTube. I'm like, this is my problem. If you want to be a trainer to high school kids because you're young, they're young, and you can kind of relate, more power, right? Just make sure that you're teaching them correct techniques, for example. But don't say that you can train me that's double your age, that's had injuries, that's, that's male also, just like that because you watched a few YouTube videos. I'm sorry, right? In the same respect, for my world as a resume whisperer, there's a ton of people that go, oh, resume writing is easy. You just go on Google, you find a few keywords, or nowadays, thanks to AI, go on ChatGPT and it'll give you a resume. Yes, ChatGPT knows the formula of the resumes that have been around for the past 35 years and can find patterns. That doesn't necessarily mean that for a white collar professional job, that's what you need, right? Now, I've had people come to me and say, oh, you're a great coach. Can you cure my, let's say, bipolarism? I know my lane. I say, no, I cannot. I'm not certified or trained to cure your bipolarism. If someone comes to me and says, can you help me write a letter to my employer saying, these are the symptoms when I have a bipolar episode so that there's less chances of me being fired? That I can do. I've been in the world for 20 years. I understand the language. I understand some of the laws in North America that I can help word this is a mental health issue that I'm bringing to your awareness, that these are the things that happen when something happens, so that I want you to know that if it does happen at work, please take the following steps or do this so that, I calm down, I come back to myself, and, I don't do anything that I will regret in terms of losing my job afterwards. But again, it's knowing to say, I'm not qualified for this. And I don't think enough people are willing to admit I'm not qualified for this yet, kind of thing. And so to me, like, I support everybody being an entrepreneur and having a program and an idea that they can teach and help others, but make sure that you know who your demographics are.
Excellent point that you just made, because if you go on LinkedIn at any given time, there's 6 million plus coaches. Everybody's a coach. I'm a coach. You're a coach. But there's a difference if you're certified. There's a difference if you have decades of experience, and to know where it is that you can bring value. To me, that's not only a respect thing, but I think to myself, okay, if you tell me you're the answer, not you and someone in general, you're the answer for everything. Who's your customer? Everyone. No, you haven't done your research. You haven't done market research, narrowed it down. And so using ChatGPT for a resume, a person's going to be missing out on decades of experience by working with a human being such as yourself, who is
But again,
not.
ChatGPT can make your resume maybe a little bit prettier than what you already have it. But ChatGPT is not going to engage you in questions that says, what are the results that you produced? What is the value of you and the work that you've done? And, how does that relate to the job that you're applying to, right? There are great things, even if, let's say, in marketing, I watch certain AI videos and I know it's AI right away because it's choppy. It's not a human. Like it looks like a human being, but it's there are certain things that in the messaging, I mean, I'm not a marketing expert. I need marketers for my company. I hire them, but I can tell the difference between an automated message and somebody that actually like I get 50 emails a day, if not 100, of people that tell me that they can help me, let's say, get customers or help me with, like, I'm particularly amused by the ones that tell me that they can help me with my resume. And my response is, did you even read one word in my profile on LinkedIn? Right? I'm the resume whisperer. You're telling me that you're going to write my resume? It's like, okay, great. Like, I'm not the only expert out there, but make sure you know what the market is that you're talking to. I've spoken to marketing firms where I was like, can you give me specifics on what you will do as a strategy for my business, or that you understand my business? And they're like, oh, first we're going to spend a few months to kind of, test a few things. I'm like, no, at this point, I don't want you to tell me generic, fluffy, like eventually we'll figure it out and I'm going to spend 10, 20 grand to figure it out. I want to know that you have a game plan, that you have a vision, that you're going to do this for a month. And if it doesn't work, we're going to switch direction. We're going to do this for a month. And if it doesn't work again on the third time, thank you very much, but I've given you 3 months. You haven't performed. On to the next person. You weren't the right person for me. But you have to own that. You can't just, apply the same, you should, there are certain rules in social media that get more engagement. That's great. There's experts in my realm that say you should customize your resume for every single job. And they have clients. More power to them. Those are not the clients I'm targeting. I'm targeting people that know what their career is. I'm targeting people that want to progress to high six-figure salaries, and that they've been more or less in the same realm for a long time. So they know what they're talking about. I'm not looking for the people that, similar to me, are looking to change careers 9 times, right? I'm looking for people that are very focused on. And even if they are changing careers, they're very focused on where they want to go. They're very focused on where they want to enter into the new career. And so customizing a resume for every single job to me is a lot of work for nothing, or for little results. Now, if you're applying, let's say, here to be in sales, here to be in marketing, and here to be in like onboarding, for example, then yeah, you can have 3 different, like the resume overall is almost the same. Just you're using different words for each one to highlight different things, or highlight the same things, but using the right lingo, for example. And that's the separation to me.
Thank you for clarifying that. That's very important. You've brought a lot of great points up. Even for me, I've learned a few things today that I wasn't aware of. One thing I'd love to have you close out on, as we look at this fabulous graphic that we both have behind us, there's Josef Stetter, and then there's the Celebrate Group. Can you let our audience know what is the value that each of these organizations can bring to them?
So Josef Stetter is more in the individual job seeker that wants a better career, a raise, a better job, etc. Or, is in transition right now because they were downsized because, market happened. The Celebrate Group is my kind of corporate side, where I help companies hire the right fit people and keep them. I do old school headhunting. I do personality assessments. I do in-depth data analysis of the candidates to tell kind of companies, this is how the person thinks, this is how they act, this is how they behave. This is what drives them. These are their kind of social responsibility interests, so that you have a complete picture of the candidate, and how to keep them engaged for the next 5-10 years as an employee for you. And that value, that data is invaluable for companies, because I save them a lot of money on turnover. I save them a lot of money in kind of hiring the wrong people, because you might have somebody that is a brilliant engineer, for example, but has no communication skills to be a leader. So try to paint that picture for everybody.
Thanks for clarifying that, Josef. We're taking a look at your website that you just talked about first, JosefStetter.com. And what can people find here on this website?
So there's a link to my online course that helps people find a job or land their dream job now, kind of thing. There is kind of a background on what magazines I've been published in, how many people I've helped, just kind of some of the approach that I do to serve people, right? Because again, not everybody's a customer for me. I spoke to a lady yesterday that told me that her husband is a truck driver and they're thinking of getting help with their resume. And I said, don't waste your money. Like, I'm not the guy that was going to write your resume, the resume of a truck driver. You need a truck driver's resume. Go on Google, go on ChatGPT, because a standard resume will work. You don't need me. For example, I help white collar professionals get ahead in their careers, and I do it in as little as 2 days, kind of thing. And I've done that with over 30 people that I place them in their dream job in under 2 days. Or in 2 days, I should say, not under, but in 2 days.
I really appreciate the fact that you are so honest about who you can help and who you feel like there's a good connection with. Many times as entrepreneurs, we become, I don't want to say desperate, but desperate, thinking, oh, I'll take any opportunity that comes my way, only to find out that then we're entrenched in something that's a time zap where we really can't bring the most value. So there are many areas where you're helping people. And I think this is a great website that really summarizes all of these things. And you have access to expert advice, which you're giving on this program as well. So, as we close out for today, what would you like to leave the audience with in terms of next steps to work with you?
Again, you can find me on any social media. Josef Stetter is pretty consistent in all of my social media platforms. Have a conversation with me, because your dream job might be around the corner, and it's could be something very simple that you need to change, or it could be something very drastic. But just because you've worked for 20 years and you've interviewed people doesn't mean that you remember how to be interviewed. Does not mean that you know how to write great resume. Just because you've hired people doesn't mean you know how to articulate your genius on a resume. That's why I'm the resume whisperer.
Thank you so much, Joseph. Another fabulous show, and we'll be back again next week. Any reveal that you want to leave the audience with to entice them to come back again next time?
I think again, it's a model where I'm strategically building right now a little bit of credibility on the show because it's a new podcast. But one of the things that I want to do in the next few weeks in terms of episodes is to actually have people join us on the call, and I will do a live resume critique with the people that are on the call or on the show, and kind of give them, per person 5-10 minutes feedback that can result in $30,000 raise for them.
And that is life-changing. Thank you so much for doing that. We're looking forward to that upcoming episode. So we'll sign off now, but please do go over to our YouTube channel, which is USA Global TV and Radio, and subscribe. You can find the playlist for this show as well as our others there. And we currently are up to 42 shows each week. So please do tune in, because we're providing education, hope, and inspiration. Joseph, an absolute pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you so much for sharing the space with me.
Thank you very much. Have a beautiful.
Thanks. You too. Bye, everyone. Bye for now.